Where were you born?
I was born in Greenfield, Massachusetts,
Okay.
February 22nd, 1921.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little area in a town named Ashfield. It's probably 14 miles from Greenfield.
Okay. Where did you go to high school?
I didn't go to high school.
You didn't? Okay.
I just went a little while, but I didn't go long enough to. I did take a course up on automotive repair and all that stuff. They had what the high school had, and I went to that.
Okay. What is your life or your town or the country before the war?
Well, things were quite hard. There wasn't much money around, and we were out in a rural area, you know. There's farming and that stuff mostly. A few shops in town, but they didn't work. They weren't working too steady. You know, things were pretty slow. It was Depression time.
Yeah. What are your memories of life before the war?
Well, it was all right. I used to run around in the woods and hunt, and when it was country and it was rural area, so I guess it was all right. I probably would have done better if I'd have been in a where they had better schooling and that stuff. But as it was, I guess I had a pretty good life, you know.
Okay. What are your memories of the 30s and the Great Depression?
Well, it was pretty things. We were pretty. It was pretty hard to make any money or any extra money or anything. I remember of having a choice of some candy or 10 cents to buy a toy, and I bought a little cast iron Ford tractor for 10 cents. You know, and things were pretty tight as far as money went and things. We had enough to eat because it was in the country, and my father had a farm there going and that stuff, but there wasn't much spending money.
Did you have a job before the war?
Yeah, I worked. I went to work in the Ford garage for a little while, and I made about $17 a week. And then I went working on construction for 62.5 cents an hour, which was $5 a day. And I worked at that. It was when they needed you. You didn't always have steady work. There was no benefits or nothing. You know, you just what you got for a paycheck is what you got. 62.5 cents an hour. You know.
Yeah. Did you have a car?
Yeah, I bought a car. I bought a Ford Model A car for $20, but it wasn't extra good. It looked good, but it wasn't in extra good condition. But I got by with it for a while. And then I had, as time went on, I bought a 37 Ford, which was better, and that's what I had when I went in the service.
Okay. What did your dad do? Like, who did he work for?
Well, he was farming, trying to farm, and he had bought a 176-acre farm from his World War I bonus, which was $1,300 and some dollars. He bought a 176-acre farm. The woman, you couldn't sell anything. The woman couldn't sell her farm, and he bought it for $1,300. And I don't know if he paid 13 some, but he paid 13 for a 176-acre farm. So he was trying to farm, and we were getting by that way, you know.
Did you pay much attention to what was happening in Europe or the Pacific before Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, there was rumors all around that there was going to be a war, and it was pretty. We could tell there was brewing for a war, you know, and I knew sooner or later I'd probably be in the service, you know. Most all the people my age, they had the same feeling they'd be after going to service, probably.
Do you remember where you were on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day?
Yeah, it was a nice sunny day,
Mhm.
and it was on a Sunday, and I was trying out a Pontiac car. I was gonna, and I got home. My mother said, "You better forget the car." She said they just bombed Pearl Harbor, so I didn't buy the car. I didn't. I knew I'd be going into service right soon.
Mhm. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
Well, I got called up to be drafted in the Army, and another fellow said to me, let's join the Navy. So I joined the Navy.
Mhm. When did you join?
In I think it was August of '42.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it was 1942. And, yeah. See, they had a draft for a year draft, but I was. You were 21. When you're 21, you'd be drafted for a year draft. But I hadn't. I was still in the 20s, and so I didn't have to go in that year draft. But then after Pearl Harbor, I knew I would be going in anyway. So I went. This other guy and I joined the Navy together.
Okay. What did your parents think about joining the service?
Well, my father was in the Army in World War I, and he didn't really think much about. Think it was a very good idea of going in the Navy, but as it turned out, I think I was a lot better off in the Navy.
How come he didn't want you to go into the Navy?
Well, I guess he just thought that the idea of going on a ship and going out to sea, I guess, and chances of getting sunk,
Yeah.
I imagine that's what it was. He didn't say, but he thought maybe I'd be better off in the Army, but I didn't think I would be.
Where did you go through basic training?
I didn't have any basic training because they were joining the Navy so fast. They only had Newport, Rhode Island, and for training. Now later years they had up in New York, but that time they only had Newport, Rhode Island. And my name being Wheeler, the end of the alphabet, I was in the last group to go down to basic training, and they didn't have any room. So they screened us out, and they said I'd be in probably in the engine room on ships, and they sent us to Wentworth Institute in Boston to take diesel motors up, and I was there for a while in Wentworth.
Did you develop any friendships that lasted through the war, like when you were there?
Well, we kept sort of, but we were moved around so much. You didn't stay with any group of guys too long. Like I was in Wentworth for a while, and then they sent me up to Portland, Maine, and I went on a ship that brought the Liberty parties back and forth from. They had a big repair ship named the Denebola out in Portland Harbor, and we were running back and forth, bringing people from the repair ship into Portland for Liberty, and then we'd have to take them back at night, running back and forth in the harbor. And I met some guys up there in Portland, because we lived on the State Pier upstairs in the State Pier, the barracks were, and some of those fellows never left Portland,
Really?
Yeah, and I kind of kept contact with them till late years here, pretty much. That I really never got real friendly with. With anyone.
Yeah. Did you have any specialized training after?
Well, I was in that engine room on ships all the time. Like after I was in Portland a while, I put in for submarine duty because I thought I'd get on a diesel. The subs were diesel those days. But I never got the submarine. They shipped me out of there to Norfolk, Virginia, and I was sent from there to Orange, Texas to go on a new destroyer escort out of Orange, Texas. that was a DE 346, and it's Edwin A. Howard, destroyer escort. And I was in the engine room on that ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What rank did you achieve when you were in the service?
What was that?
What rank?
I was a second-class machinist mate in the Navy when I was in the Navy, and I was a top watch in the after engine room on this destroyer escort. Mm-hmm. And I was doing a rating of a first-class machinist mate, and they told me put my progress tests in, and I would get the rating. But it wasn't very convenient to do any tests. We didn't have any much room or anything, and you didn't know if he was going to be sailing the next day or something, you know. So I kind of didn't put the tests in, so I stayed second class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What were you paid during the war?
Well, when I was a second-class machinist mate, I got $96 a month, and we got 20% more for sea pay when we were at sea, you know. 96 a month and 20% for sea pay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What battalion or company or platoon?
What was that?
Were you in like a battalion or a company or platoon or anything?
No. We were they had different divisions, and every day we had to muster to make sure the personnel were all there, that no one had got lost or fell overboard or something. Mm-hmm. And so I was in what they call the E division. That's the below decks men and the electricians and that stuff was. And we'd muster every day, you know, to make. Mm-hmm. They'd check to see if you were there. Mm-hmm. And make sure no one was lost or anything. That's about the only thing I can say to that question.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember when you were shipped out, or did you know, when you were like sent somewhere?
You mean the days, or?
Yeah, like the first time that you were shipped out somewhere.
I don't really remember what time of the year or month. But we went to the Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. We went along we were escorting these Army transport ships where they were loaded with troops all along we'd go up the African coast. Mm-hmm. We stayed close to Africa because Spain was on the other side, and they thought the German planes were coming out of Spain, so they stayed close to Africa. Mm-hmm. And we went up the coast there and up far as Naples. That's as far up as I ever got, into Naples. I don't really know where the Army unloaded them troops. I've thought of that, but I don't really know where they did unload them. Mm-hmm. I didn't see any of that part. We just escorted them up the Mediterranean.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Do you know, like, what kind of ship or anything you took to get there?
What kind of a ship?
Yeah.
That what?
Like, what sort of ship you took to get there, like, what the model was or anything like that? What it was called?
My ship?
Yeah.
It was a DE, that's a destroyer escort. Mm-hmm. It's similar to destroyer, but it's smaller.
Oh, okay.
And the number was 346, mm-hmm. and the name was Edwin A. Howard.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take from the time that you left this country to get over to, like, Europe?
To the Mediterranean?
Yeah.
I really don't know. Of course, we used to be in and out with a convoy all the time. We were maneuvering all around all the time, and I don't remember just how many days it took. I was out in the South Pacific after. I know it took quite a while to get back from there. Mm-hmm. I can't remember just how long it did take to go across the Atlantic. Mm-hmm. I don't remember, to tell you the truth.
Okay. Where did you go first when you went overseas? Was that up the African coast?
Yeah. We didn't get any liberty. They wouldn't let you off. There were sunken ships all along up through there. Mm-hmm. In Africa, it looked like all the docks around them, the ships were sunk in the harbors, you know.
Yeah.
In Naples, there's a big breakwater there, but that was all full of sunken ships in there. They had when we got there, the ships had already been sunk. We didn't see them sunk. They were already sunk when we got there, and we couldn't get back of the breakwater. But we had a big storm when we were there, and it was really rough. And it was pretty warm when we were over there too. Yeah.
Did you ever go like directly into battle with your ship? Were you ever attacked or anything?
Well, we were. You're always at some kind of a, we didn't, out in the South Pacific, then we went to the South Pacific after that. Out there we probably came closer to more, we were lucky in the Mediterranean, that's the way I figure anyway. It was just, you were always at risk, but it was kind of quiet. You know, we were just escorting these big troop transports. We were loaded with troops, and there it wasn't that bad. But it was, you always were they always had general quarters and battle stations and all that stuff. You know, he was always at drill.
Yeah.
You were always on combat alert. You know. Yeah.
What was your daily life like?
Well, I had my regular watch in the engine room, you know, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, or like that. And then if there's general quarters, you have to man your battle station, and the chief machinist mate used to relieve me. And my battle station was repair party number 2, which was up on the main deck. I could see everything. And he went down below decks and took my daily routine job. He was a chief. He had about 13 or 14 years in the Navy. Yeah, I learned a lot from him. Earlier.
Did you ever see action at all?
Well, it was in the South Pacific. We used to get suicide planes all the time, and then we were in. I can't remember where it was. We were in somewhat combat. You know, we had. I mean, you were always on edge. You never knew what was going to happen. When we went to the Pacific, you know.
Yeah.
It was more.
Can you describe your tour of duty overseas as much as you can remember? Like what you did every day?
Yeah. Well, like I say, what I did, I was in the engine room, you know?
Yeah.
And we had turbines and pumps, and like when I was a top watch, I had to make sure that under me there was a throttleman and an oiler, and there was an electrician on my watch. He was more or less his own. I really wasn't a boss over him, but he was on my watch. And we had oilers, and we had pump men, and I had to make sure that they was alert and ready all the time. Because when you're at sea traveling, the water goes through your condenser, which cools your steam off from the turbines from a sea scoop. But if you have to back down, go astern, in an emergency, you have to have a pump. The pump man has to have the pump running down below to run water through the condenser. And he has to be alert and ready to go any minute if we have to back down, which we did have to do one time when we got in a collision. Yeah, and you just have to make sure everything's going and ready, you know. We had crossover valves in case there's 2 engine rooms and 2 fire rooms, and in case any one of them got hit, we could close it off, secure it off with the crossover valves, and try to save our part, save as much as we could of the ship, you know. And things like that. You just had to be alert all the time.
Right. When you were in the Pacific, do you remember any encounters, like, specifically?
Do I remember any? We were in one. We did quite a lot of things. We were in Borneo. One morning we went in Borneo with 5 minesweepers. I guess they was going to sweep the shore, but by afternoon 3 of them were sunk, and we had the other 2 pulled out of there. And we couldn't pick any survivors up because the fire was so heavy from the shore, you know. Mm-hmm. And then we went back out to sea, and they brought in these big cruisers. I remember there's the Montpelier, the Denver, and the Phoenix, and there were quite a few of them, and they shelled the beach real hard for about 3 days and nights steady. And there was lots of fire, you know, the shore they had, and there was evidently oil fields there. Mm-hmm. And there were lots of fire at night when they'd hit something over there. And then the Australian troops came in there and took that Borneo. Mm-hmm. And they brought the one more. At daybreak, they used to have the landings, you know, as soon as the daybreak got light, that's when they'd have the landings. And they brought the Australian troops in there. They're the ones that took Borneo, the part we were in anyway. I don't know, maybe they add other troops in other areas. I don't know, you know. Mm-hmm. But that's where that. And then we were all around a lot out there, and I can't remember all the names. We couldn't keep a diary or anything like that. And of course, you couldn't take any pictures. I could have taken some nice pictures if I could have, but we couldn't take anything like that because
How come you couldn't write a diary or anything?
Well, if they took us as
yeah.
captured us, they'd have a record of us, and they didn't. I don't know. They just had that rule, and no diaries, no cameras.
Yeah.
And but I was up on deck in repair party. See what I did if we got hit in that area. We had 3 sections as repair parties, and I was in a midship. Mm-hmm. And that was right up on deck. Actually, I had one of the best battle stations because I could see everything, you know.
Yeah.
Everything that was going on. There was we had quite a few landings. Our ship was little landings, like, we were in a lot of places. We was in an island, I'm trying to think what it is. It was near to China. And they gave us liberty there, but I guess they didn't realize how the Japanese had just killed a lot of people there. And I happened to be. They used to have port and starboard liberties. Half of the ship would be port and half would be starboard. But I was on the liberty party that could get ashore that day. Mm-hmm. So they let us ashore so we could get our feet on the ground for a while. But it was a mess there. They called the Liberty Party off, and we never got any more liberties. Nobody got any more liberties in that area, because the Japs had murdered a lot of people right there, and they were trying to bury them, and it was pretty rough right there. Mm-hmm. But we were there, around there when they took it over, but we didn't. I mean, our ship just kept maneuvering around at sea, you know.
Yeah.
And escorting and watching out for whatever, you know, that they could do, I guess. Mm-hmm. But you see, that's one reason I was glad I was in the Navy. I didn't have to make them landings on the beach, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Those guys used to go on their landing barges. They'd go right by our ship in the morning. Uh-huh. And they weren't fooling around.
Yeah.
They knew sooner hit the shore than the firing would start.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first brush with danger?
Well, probably out in the South Pacific, mostly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Do you remember the first one, like, specifically, though? Like, the first thing that happened that was the scariest, I guess?
I don't know. It seems like, well, there was always something. You always had thoughts, because the suicide planes used to come in, and they'd fly around till they got low on fuel, I guess. Then they'd land into some ship, you know. They'd hit one of the ships somewhere. Yeah. The nearest they ever came to when we were going to Okinawa with 5 high-octane tankers for the aircraft carriers,
Mhm.
and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I think. A Jap submarine was in among us,
Mhm.
and I knew I had got the word that there was a sub, and I was on watch, my watch,
Mhm.
and we got a flank speed astern alarm. That means back down for all the power you got.
Mhm.
And we hit another ship. We rammed another ship that was making a run on the submarine.
Mhm.
And so we didn't get in the invasion of Okinawa, but we were on our way with these tankers.
Mhm.
So, but our ship would still sail. So we had to go back to the Philippines
Mhm.
and go in dry dock. And when we were in the dry dock, the Jap sub come in and hit the ship that was in the dry dock near us. But of course it looks close on the water, but it's really probably quite a little ways away, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, in the afternoon. Yeah, we used to get Japanese suicide planes sometimes at night, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd get them in the day. We'd get them anytime during the 24 hours. You never know.
Mhm. Do you remember any times or places that, I don't know, they just stick out in your memory a lot?
Not really. We were in so many different places out there. We really travel around out there.
Yeah.
We were going all the time, night and day.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we'd be escorting something into some harbor or something, and then we'd go right out and escort something else. We didn't get ashore much. We never got our dress booze out of the locker all the time I was in the South Pacific, so
Mhm.
you know, we never got where there were many people. They did let us go ashore on a beach once in a while, but there was nothing there,
Mhm.
you know, just to get on the ground.
Yeah.
But there would never be nothing there.
Mhm.
And they used to tell you, stay away from the jungle, stay on the beach, don't get in the jungle, you know.
Yeah. Definitely.
And that's the way it went.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who's the person that you remember the most?
Gee, I don't know. I met so many people. I mean, you meet different people all the time, like, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Did you have any like really good friends with you the whole time?
Well, yeah, we used to meet other guys but I didn't follow it up too much after I got out.
Yeah. What smells do you associate with World War II? Like, what reminds you of it? Is there any smells?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I was glad to see the war get over. I know that.
Yeah.
It's about mostly I could. Things didn't pick up too well even after the war. It was because a lot of them had worked in the shipyards and all that, and all those were closing down
Mhm.
after the war.
Yeah.
It was kind of. It wasn't really. Things didn't pick up very well with money.
Mhm.
No.
Do you remember any specific sounds from when you were out there?
Any sound? I don't.
Okay. What about equipment? Do you remember any of the equipment from when you were there? Like on the ship?
Any equipment?
Mhm.
We had, like in our ship, we had there were shelves in the engine room, and we had all spare parts for everything, you know, that we in emergency to get by with, you know, like. But we didn't really have to use much. Our ship was pretty efficient, and it ran pretty well, I thought.
Mhm.
But they scrapped it, I guess, after the war out in the South Pacific. I mean, out in California,
Mhm.
after they come out. But I got off the ship before it was decommissioned.
Mhm.
See, I got transferred. The engineering officer that was on our ship, he had to transfer two engine room men to Shoemaker, California for advanced machinist mate school.
Mhm.
And he picked me and myself and another man. So we got off the ship before the war was really over, you know.
Uh-huh.
But by the time they got to go to school out in Shoemaker, to this advanced machinist mate school, the war was, hadn't really thought much about who was vice president.
Yeah.
But we were in the South Pacific when he died, when Roosevelt died.
Mhm.
And of course, some guys wondered about what the difference would be, but it seemed to go pretty well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about dropping the atomic bombs? Do you think that they should have done that?
Well, I have a good idea that there's a possibility I wouldn't even be here if they hadn't, you know.
Yeah.
And then maybe I would have made it. I don't know, you know.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, at the time it was.
The atomic bomb, I think they had dropped the first one before we were to be transferred to California, this other guy and myself.
Mhm.
I kind of forgot what it. We used to get a little folder of a newspaper once in a while, once in a great while, and they said I think they said they had dropped this bomb, but we didn't have any, you know, like I say, no TV or anything. We used to have a radio on the ship. They used to put that on, and they'd have Tokyo Rose on there. She'd be telling us we're in the 7th Fleet, and she'd be telling you where the 7th Fleet was going to make a landing next, and play Home Sweet Home and all that stuff, you know, to try to make it hard on you. But they'd play that on the radio on the ship. They'd for a while, sometimes during the day, but that's about all the news we ever got. You know?
Yeah. Did the war change your attitude towards the Germans or the Japanese, or what you thought about them?
Well, I didn't seem to have the bitterness with the German people that I did with the Japanese. It was kind of hard to get that. They were pretty brutal out there, you know?
Yeah.
From what I saw, you know. You didn't figure you was going to have a very good chance if you was taken prisoner, but maybe you would, I don't know. We probably wouldn't have had many prisoners anyway, because, you know, probably there wouldn't have been many survivors, I don't think. Yeah. Especially when we were them high-octane tankers. They used to try to teach you how to swim if the water was afire and all that, but I don't think you'd stand much chance. How could you?
Yeah.
We one time they said there was a young fellow went in the Navy from Shelburne Falls ahead of me, and his name was Johnny Kennedy, and he was on the cruiser Vincennes, and we were out there. One time they said we're in some of the deepest water in the South Pacific now, and this is the area that the Vincennes went down in, you know. And, that kind of gave me an odd feeling, because Kennedy, I knew him, you know. He was a little bit older than I, but he went down with the Vincennes, you know.
Yeah.
And that went down, they said that was the deepest water, some of the deepest water in the South Pacific.
Yeah. Do you remember VE Day or VJ Day?
Well, I was on a British transport, but we came back. That took 17 days and 18 nights. I can remember that one. We came back from the Philippines on this transport, and there were most all wounded Marines and Army men on it. And I think they said there were 500 Navy guys being transferred. And the Navy personnel was in pretty good shape, like myself. We had to all work on the ship. I worked in the mess deck around the kitchens and that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And no matter what your rating was, you turned 2. And we were opposite Pearl Harbor. They said the lights were the lights at Hawaiian Islands of Pearl Harbor. They said that was when we got the word that the war was over, you know.
Yeah.
So we were on our way back. We were pretty well to the States anyway, and we were supposed to gone into California, but they changed our port to Seattle, Washington. So we went to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when the ship docked and they took the people off, they took all the wounded off first.
Mm-hmm.
So us Navy people were the last.
Uh-huh.
And the bands had gone, and the coffee cups were all over the deck and things,
Uh-huh.
and that was gone. And
Yeah.
by the time we got off, the Navy.
Yeah.
But they took all wounded personnel off first.
Mhm. What did you feel like when it was suddenly all over?
Well, it was a relief, you know. You
Yeah.
felt pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that you got through it, you know. And you was always wondering. You didn't, you didn't feel very secure. I know that. You know, you didn't know. You know, how do you know? You could be sunk tonight. You know.
Mhm. Yeah. After they said that the war was over, do you know how long it took you to get back? Like how many days?
Well, we got into Seattle, and they said that they had scratched the deal on us going to school. This other guy and myself.
Uh-huh.
They'd canceled that, and they said you go on leave and turn in your nearest receiving station when your leave is up.
Mhm.
So the other guy's was Philadelphia, his receiving station, and mine was the Fargo building in Boston.
Mhm.
And so I went on leave. I don't remember if we had 30 days. It was quite a long time.
Mhm.
And then I turned into the Fargo, and they told me I was going to be a master at arms in a section of the barracks there,
Mhm.
which I didn't want. Didn't like. I don't care for that type of work, type of duty, you know.
Yeah.
And I said to the yeoman, I said, geez, I don't know anything about being a master at arms. I said, I'd like to get transferred to Portland, Maine. He said, what do you want to go to Portland, Maine for? And I said, well, that's where I was when I first started.
Mhm.
So he assigned me to Portland, Maine. And I got up there, and quite a few of the men that were there when I was there before are still there.
Oh,
You know,
Lord,
they
yeah.
never left Portland.
Uh-huh.
And so all I had was my campaign bars and my this and that over them, you know.
Mhm.
And the executive officer that was there when I was there first had been transferred, and they had a lady executive officer. So she said, gee, you're a machinist, mate. I don't have anything that's more, at that time, now they call them turbine men, I guess.
Mhm.
And I don't have anything for a machinist, mate, she said. But if you were a motor machinist, I have a yard tug. I said, well, I went to Wentworth Institute on diesel.
Mhm.
So she said, oh, yeah, you did, didn't you? She said, she saw that in my record, you know.
Yeah.
She said, well, you go down and see the chief machinist, mate, on the tug, and if he wants you on there, I'll assign you to the yard tug,
Mhm.
which was YTB 217, and the name of it was the Ensenada.
Mhm.
So I got down there, and the chief said, boy, am I glad to see you. He said, I want to get a relief. He said, I want to go to occupational Germany. He said, I want to go to occupational Germany. So he said, I've been trying to get a relief, and I couldn't seem to get one.
Mhm.
So we both went back up to the executive officer,
Mhm.
and he filled his paperwork out to be transferred to occupational Germany, and she assigned me to the yard tug. So I had the yard engine room job in the yard tug, which was a diesel electric job.
Mhm.
And we did tug work in the Portland Harbor.
Mhm.
And Mr. File was captain of those tug. He was a Lieutenant JG, And he said, you're not going to get out of this Navy right away, you know. And he said, the chief couldn't get nobody to relieve him. He said, and I don't think we'll get anybody to relieve you very quick either. So it was in the winter was coming on, and I didn't know what I was going to do anyway. So I said, well, I don't really care, you know. So I didn't get out of the Navy till March 21st, 1946. Yeah. They sent me from Portland to Boston to get discharged. March 21st in 1946. So I stayed on that tug all winter that winter, and I had a stateroom, and most of the guys lived ashore. I could cook a steak when I come in or anything else, you know. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good duty.
What was homecoming like for you?
Well, it was all right, you know. I mean, I was glad to get out, and I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But then in '46, the main turnpike, they started working on the turnpike, and I got to work on construction there, and I stayed at construction work after that. Yeah.
So you worked right when you got home, like you started working right when you got back.
Yeah, I didn't start right on the turnpike because it was getting ready to start, but it hadn't started. I worked for a while up in Portland for a cook. They had transit mixes and that stuff. I worked a while for them, and then I went on the turnpike boat and got going good. In '46, I went on the turnpike right out here in Wells.
You know how they dropped the first bomb in Nagasaki, and Japan had surrendered and stuff, and then they dropped Hiroshima? What do you think about that? Do you think that they should have dropped the second one, or just the first?
I really didn't know much about it. All we heard was, in this little folder that we got, it was a little newspaper, that they had dropped some sort of large bomb. We didn't even know it was an atomic bomb, or much of any details on it. And it done terrific damage. And then the next thing, they had dropped another one, but by then I was on my way back to the States, and we didn't know anything about atomic bombs or nothing. I mean, I didn't. Maybe there's some people for sure must have, but I mean, the average guy on the ship didn't. We didn't know what it was. All I could think of when they told about the atomic bomb was there used to be an old man when I was a kid, and he used to say this person or that person didn't have an atom's mite of sense, and I couldn't figure what an atom was. And now they're talking about atomic bombs, you know. So it was something all new to us, you know. And we didn't. The news was altogether different. All you got was radio news, you know. I mean, like now they tell you every little item, but then they didn't. You know, they tell you the news or the weather, and during Depression time, if our radio didn't work, it took a few days before my folks could afford to. I guess that's what it was. I don't know. They didn't used to get the radio repaired right away, but you know, so there's times you didn't. People got most of their news out of the newspaper those days. And of course at sea you didn't have any newspaper except for this little flyer about like this little folder you have here. You know, with a few details on it.
What does 5220 mean to you? What does 5220 mean to you?
5220. I don't know.
Okay, it just said it here. They're questions that are already made up, so I wasn't. The questions were already made up by my teacher.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't sure if it was relevant or not. Okay. Did you make any use of the GI Bill rights?
I never got one thing out of the, and I never applied for one thing. Anything. Till your mother took me up there to tell us to get prescription drugs when I got on so many drugs, and the drugs are so expensive. That's the only thing I've ever gotten out of these services, prescription drugs.
How do you think life in the U.S. was different after the war than before?
I had a hard time getting adjusted, eat one way or another, kind of.
Yes.
I think quite a few people have a hard time after things change so much.
Mhm.
It was up to the 50s. It seemed like it was. Yeah, it was kind of insecure, like for me. I couldn't get straightened around much. But around the 50s, construction work was good, and there was quite a little work then for me. Like in Jersey, I worked in Jersey, and there was a turnpike and a garden estate, and there was quite a lot of work, and it seemed to be better then.
Yeah, the economy was a lot better.
Yeah. But right after the war, it was kind of bleak because all this defense stuff had shut down.
Yeah.
And those people were all looking for work, and it was a stage of a time when that things weren't too secure, and none of us had ever got over that real depression times, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always had in the back of my mind that I was scared to go in debt much, you know, and because you didn't know what was going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
And I think most people held back on debts those days compared to now.
Yeah. Was it really noticeable when you got out of the war how much the economy changed?
Well, yes, it had picked up. You could get something, but it still wasn't good. Like I say, it's because so many defense workers were out of work then.
Yeah.
And they had to have it. They had to get something. So there were a lot of people who see the war. Everybody could work during the war. You could work in the Navy, in the yards, and there was a lot of work, I guess. I was in the service, but they needed help all over, like security guards and all that. Well, after the war, they did away with all those jobs.
Yeah.
So those people were looking for something else too, you know. So it took up into the from what I see, it took up into the 50s for me anyway, and I imagine a lot of other people to really feel, because in the 50s I had it pretty good in construction. I was making a little money, which was nothing compared to what you make today, you know, but then it seemed pretty good.
Yeah. When did you get married?
51.
Yeah. Okay. And you had 3 kids, and
yeah,
it asks that, so, but I know.
Yeah.
Where did you end up settling after the war?
Well, we moved around a lot. I worked in New Jersey a lot, and I worked at Andrews Air Force Base when they did lots of concrete down there, and I was out in Ohio, and I was out in Michigan, and I worked in Maine. Elaine was born in Maine.
Yeah.
On the next section of the turnpike. So we moved around a lot. We started out in a mobile home, and I used to move it around, but then things got complicated as it was hard to put your mobile home anywhere, and then we did some apartment stuff for a while. We were kind of unsettled, like, you know, but I did it to make a living, you know, construction. And I never was a good book person, you know.
Yeah.
I never cared for it, and the longer I evaded it, the worse I got.
What did the war do to your outlook on things? What did the war do to your outlook on things? Like, did it change you personally a lot?
I don't know. I know one thing. I don't really like this war stuff like that they're doing now. I don't. There's certain things you have to do, but I wouldn't want to get in any deeper than I had to into wars. I mean, I don't know as they do much good, and they do a lot of damage. I think you get a scar from a war. You don't that you don't really get over too easy. You know.
Yeah.
Think of these guys that they get over there. You don't know. You know. You don't know if you're going to live the next day. You know.
Mhm. Yeah. What do you think about the world that you grew up in versus today? Do you think it was better?
Well, I think it was more meaningful. I mean, I think they had to do it more than they do now. I'm not sure they have to get into all this wars now.
Yeah.
In my mind. It seems to me they could either keep out of it or do a little more political work and avoid it.
Yeah.
But the whole world was pretty well involved, and all the nations were pretty well involved in World War II. We're kind of pulled into it anyway, I guess. I don't know. Of course, I was young then.
Okay. Would you have rather grown up like in the 30s or today?
I don't know. There was a lot of different, I don't know if everywhere it was like we were, but everybody was in their 30s. If you could gain a little, like if, for instance, it was farmers and that stuff, and if someone built a barn, everybody'd say, oh, this one or that one's building a barn, and then, isn't it nice and all that. No. More money and things going around now. Majority of people were poor before, and now it's probably better now. I really don't know. I don't know how to, because I think a person changes along with times. I mean, you change your personality, your life changes, and you just kind of go along with it, I guess.
Yeah. Have you read Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation?
No.
Do you think that your generation deserves that title?
Did you read at all? No one protested or anything much. You know what I mean? Everything was so beat down that I guess they just did it. I don't know. And now they protest more, you know.
Yeah. Did you ever see Saving Private Ryan?
Did I ever?
That movie, Saving Private Ryan?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if you thought that it, like, portrayed what war was like, or...
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, okay. What would you like your grandchildren to know about, your life? Like, how it was difficult and, like, all those things. What do you think that they should know?
I don't know how to put this. I guess you just go with what you've got, and we didn't have much in our days, you know.
Yeah.
And I really don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had to do it over again, would you?
Would I do what? With the Navy?
Go into the Navy, yeah.
Oh, I think I would go in the Navy, because I don't, I don't know whether it's. I just don't care for the army style of life. I mean, I wouldn't want to crawl around in the infantry and that stuff.
Yeah.
In the Navy, you got a chance of being sunk and all that, but it's a better life. We had a shower every day, and your ship is kind of a home to you. I mean, you got a place to sleep, such as it is. But I wouldn't like that army life.
Mhm. What was your greatest accomplishment?
I don't. You got me on that. I don't know what to say. Yeah. Accomplishment. I don't know. I just always kept struggling along. That's all I know. Seems to me it was always. We just kept going. That's all.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with anyone from the war? Or?
No, I haven't. No. Well, there's a few. I haven't seen them for a long time, but I have seen. There was one guy in Portland. When I was in Portland, he lived in Westbrook, but he never left the state pier. And I've seen him a few times around. I haven't seen him lately. And then there was another one who was in Portland that his father was a doctor, and he was in college when he had to go into service, and he was the yeoman for the executive officer up in Portland. And the last I know, which I know he's been retired quite a while by now, but he went on in schoolwork, and he was a doctor something, and he was in Westfield Teachers College. He was something to do with the Teachers College down in Westfield, Mass. Frank Samus. I used to keep in touch with him quite a bit. But late years, I've lost track of all these people. They might not even be with it now. You know.
Do you wish that you kept in touch with any of them, like in particular?
Not late years, no.
No. But do you wish that you had, like, from when you were in the Navy, any of those people? Do you wish that you had kept in touch with them?
Well, I'm not very good because I don't communicate very good writing anything. My wife used to do writing, send Christmas cards and things, but you know, I'm not very good with a pencil, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mother went to Framingham Normal School. See, in 2 years they were teachers. So she lived in Hudson, Massachusetts, and she stayed at the dormitory over in Framingham. In the town of Ashfield, which is way out in the western part of Massachusetts, they used to go down to Framingham as the teachers were graduating, and they'd get these teachers that just graduated from school, because I expect Ashfield didn't have any money. I mean, they didn't have industry, they didn't have anything but farmers, and they were looking for inexpensive teachers. That's my impression of it. No, I'm not. Nobody ever told me that, but I'm sure that's the way it was.
Yeah.
So my mother was going to school in Framingham, and she was living in a dormitory, and they came down there and interviewed some of the girls, and my mother was one of them, and they offered her a job right off up in Ashfield, Mass. So she took the job and signed a contract with them and all that, and happy to get a job, see, and she was going to go home that weekend and tell her father. Her mother wasn't living, but her father was. And she was going to tell her father that she'd got a job. In the meantime, while her father, the principal in Hudson, had contacted her father and said he would like to have her come to work in Hudson. And he was keeping it a secret till when she got home, he had a job for her. And she got home that weekend or whatever it was. And she told him she'd taken a job, and he said, oh, he just had a job for her. The principal wanted her to take a job in Hudson. So I said to her, that's where you made your mistake, coming out here in the hills, in the woods.
Yeah.
But she always stayed out there. She never... She boarded with my grandmother, and my father was in World War... He went in World War I in the service. And of course he came home, and my mother met him, and they got married later. She only taught about 3 years, I think. Then they got married. And my father said that in the 20s things were pretty good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I guess business went pretty good, but in 29 they had that big crash and everything went depression.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
My mother always stayed out there in the western part of Massachusetts.
Did you not like it out there, or?
Did I? What?
Did you not like it out there?
I don't care for it out there.
What didn't you like about it?
To me, it was always a hard place to make a living, you know? They say Maine is hard, but I'd rather be up here and have it hard than I would be out there and have it hard. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of depressing out there, you know? I thought.
Yeah.